So I'd now like to ask Chris Anderson to present. Chris is a geophysicist with White Tiger Resources. His talk is titled 3 IOs to Go. Do you want CG with those? And I'm looking forward to hearing about the upsell, Chris.
Thanks, Peter. Holy crap, it's a hard act to follow. Good. I'm going to talk about IOCGs, and I'm assuming that everyone in the audience knows what IO and CG stand for. I'm a practitioner of chasing these things for a long time. One of the major issues is trying to find IOG systems that have copper and gold, not just iron oxide. So that's the title. White Tiger is a I can't really read that. Can we get the full screen? Oh, you can read it. So White Tiger is a public unlisted company. We've been exploring South Australia now for about 10 years. Projects are summarised on the licence map. I'm going to be talking about 3 IOCG targets. The company has projects with other deposit styles in them, but in my background and my view is that the 3 IOCG targets are the company's priority, or the most prospective at the moment. So the content, don't have to read about me, but just, well, as I said, White Tiger have been trying to focus on defining geophysical features, because that's what I do, and trying to narrow down the selection criteria to things that might be more likely to deliver copper gold rather than just magnetite or hematite. So the overview is really trying to summarise those concepts to get towards a model that is more likely to deliver copper gold. I'm not going to say that this is still talking about geophysics, so don't get too excited. But what I would like to stress on this one slide is that it's relying on a sort of a more quantitative assessment of residual gravity features, and that to me is becoming a likely criteria, particularly for the Oak Dam, Carapatina size deposits, that you need to focus down on gravity features that are actually dimension-wise correct, and also permissible of a proper density contrast that's going to be consistent with hematite breccia system. Other factors that come into it, and the one I'll mention probably quite regularly, is that it's better if it has low amplitude magnetic relief associated with it. Not because the amplitude of the magnetics is that important, but it does actually mean that you're more likely to have a gravity target that is actually reflecting basement rather than other things that can influence gravity relief. We're generally sort of looking towards the craton margins. That's partly a tenement access situation, but also I think that there are potential regions that have been grossly underexplored in the Gawler Craton, mostly because they're not magnetic terrain. So we tended to go out towards the edges, and then that brings us to possibly getting closer to craton margins, which may or may not be good places to be. But this is a real personal acknowledgement. I'd like to thank the White Tiger owners for putting up with my ideas for 10 years now. We've been moderately successful in terms of getting things done on the ground, but we haven't cracked the payload. And just the 4 people at the bottom of the slide here, I would like to thank personally for their input to, in the case of John and Ken, geological discussions around IOCG models. They don't always agree, and I don't always agree with them. Jim Hannison and John Payne are more on the geophysical side. John's not here, but he's the man that delivers the magic for the mathematics of processing potential field data. So, Gawler Craton, this is where the real IOG CGs are, Carapatina, Olympic Dam, Prominent Hill, and obviously Oak Dam West now is just sort of roughly halfway between Carapatina and Oak Dam, Olympic Dam. And as indicated in there, what this slide is to show is that the regional geological setting of these three targets is very, very different. Pandara's down in the south end, at the bottom end of the Gawler Range volcanics, Warren Creek up towards the Prominent Hill area, and Maree, which is the more frontier type concept out near the northeastern margin of the Gawler Craton proper. So that's the D1 CG with these, right? And this is the name of the prospect. So Pandara, we're going to talk about Block Dam, Warren Creek east, and Maree M1. So couldn't find any better names up there. And this is what I want to talk about. This is a BG residual image for the whole Gawler Craton, or the Olympic domain part of it. The regional, and it's data from the SAEMC, so it comes warts and all with quite a few, or a lot of data errors. But what I'm going to talk about is trying to quantify what you can see in that. There's no artificial intelligence or machine learning or fuzzy logic, except that maybe my logic's getting a bit fuzzy these days. So just an educated anomaly hunting back in the good old days. And you can see the locations for the three projects on that image. What I'm going to present is just sections of that image for each project to show what I'm talking about. And this is the, most people exploring this part of the world have probably seen this before, but it shows how this particular processing of the gravity data does highlight the known IOCG systems in this area. Now, I'm not going to go into how it works at Olympic Dam. It does obviously outline Olympic Dam, but I think the reality is that there's probably not another Olympic Dam gravity anomaly sitting in the area. But what it does highlight is that the known systems in this area do stand out reasonably well in this processing of the gravity. And just to compare it to the magnetics, and this is going back to the argument about how a lot of exploration has been focused into the more magnetic parts of the craton. If you look at the magnetic image on the top right, that's showing that none of these known systems have what you would call any sort of even moderate magnetic relief. Carapatina, virtually none. Cam's a little bit more magnetic. Oak Dam, you really have to squeeze the magnetics to get a kick over it. And Emmy Bluff, the IOCG part of Emmy Bluff, probably sits in a magnetic low between quite extensive magnetite development there. So we'll start with Pandara, which is on the southern one in the Gawler Range volcanics. It's the tenement package surrounds a interesting epithermal gold project held by Tasman. That's a tenement summary. You can see Parkinson Dam in the middle and the location of the Block Dam anomaly on a northeast trending fault near the eastern edge of the project area. Targeting in this region has sort of come from a model put forward by Ken Cross some time ago now. Ken, I'm not sure. I unfortunately couldn't find an official title for his talk, but the cover of his presentation is down there in black and showing the what I think is the true scientific assessment of where the copper and gold might come from. There's a couple of Grogans sitting there blowing hydrothermal fluid up into the Gawler Craton. The central image shows the residual gravity contours on an outcrop geology plan and a fairly significant northeast trending regional fault. Now, there is a small ironstone subcrop in the centre of that gravity anomaly which was defined or found by Western Mining back in 1994. Western Mining identified the anomaly, did a couple of detailed gravity lines across it, God bless them, and one line of IP. So this is what I'm saying, this is what I'm talking about. This is the Goldilocks moment, that you want a gravity residual anomaly that's not too big, not too small, just right. So dimensions of it are important. This is 1,000 by 600 metres. Don't want to probably go too much bigger than that. It has a very, very weak magnetic anomaly, which you can see in the central slide, and the magnetics is complicated a little bit there by the dikes. But the magnetics is important because it sort of supports the idea that the gravity's not reflecting some other cover source. This is more detailed modelling of that prospect area. The conventional sort of cross-section model showing the inferred density distribution. And the important thing of this to note is that the density contrast for these two main gravity sources is 0.7, which is putting it into the right density range for a hematite breccia system. I've tried to show in the left or the central slide where there's some anomalous geochemistry from lag sampling done by WMC, which coincides with the eastern part of the eastern of the two gravity targets. So this has got a number of good factors going for it. The eastern red body is roughly 1 billion tonnes, down to about 800 metres below the top. The other gravity target in there is just weakly magnetic. So you have this nice combination of separation of gravity and magnetic targets. And I've just put on the bottom, thanks to Donald Trump, drill baby drill. Okay, Warrana Creek project, we've just jumped about 400 kilometres to the north, just northeast of Prominent Hill. And this is the background to the project. There's a very low amplitude but isolated, strange looking magnetic anomaly which was identified back in the late 70s. And what I also wanted to point out here was that you have this major sort of change in overall magnetic relief where you go into these blue zones of non-magnetic relief. And that's reflected in this slide and showing the density of drilling in the magnetic terrain versus the two lonely holes out on the eastern side. Now the eastern WCK01 was drilled in 1977 by Kennecott. I'll go a little bit into what Minotaur reviewed that and drilled WC05D01 in 2005 after reassaying the core from the Kennecott hole and recognising some strong rare earth mineralisation. 2 minutes, I've got to go hurry. So this is too big anomaly. Papa Bear's bed, too big. The hole that Minotaur drilled went through a thick sequence of cover, and possibly that's what's contributed to the gravity. I'll keep what Black Tiger have done, has reviewed the Warrana Creek hole, got Doug Mason to look at a couple of petrology slides, and he was of the opinion that it was an alteration system with IOCG affinity, which was enough for us to think about what we were going to do next. And what we did was we drilled another hole 600 metres north of WCK01, and that was based on trying to test both the likely magnetic position north of the hole and the residual gravity closure, which was definitely north of the hole. Very disappointing hole. Did not really explain either the gravity or the magnetics, but returned, and not geochemically too exciting, but some rare earths. I'm going to have to... Look, I just want to make a point here about the history of models. Kathy Urig, I would like to acknowledge. She turns up at this show every year. And this is an introduction to the possibility of looking at the basal Pandara formation to move towards recognising John Anderson's model for the development of this lower Pandora unit and red shale unit with, I'm not going to have the time to do this, zircon alteration index, which John has identified as being very positive in both holes at Warrana Creek. So I will just click through this and say this is what Warrana Creek looks like at the moment. We believe that the blue outline is a high density gravity target. The red outline is actually the dimensions of Carapatina hematite body, and we think we have a zircon alteration index vector from the two holes towards where this residual gravity is. I will just skip Maree because Maree is a frontier project and I'm out of time. I believe it's potentially a extension of the Gawler Craton under not too excessive cover, but we have magnetic comparisons with the Carapatina area and Maree, which support the idea that this might be worth looking at. And again, the BG residual anomaly is the same sort of dimensions over this magnetic feature as we see at Oak Dam West. So there's a problem with the coverage of gravity there, and we need to look seriously at doing, or not seriously, we need to do infill gravity to confirm that. But we think there's quite a good chance that this is actually a Carapatina type target in a fault uplifted graben block of the Gawler Craton. So, summary, there's 3 projects, with the exception of Maree, Pandora and Warrana East are the 2 best defined, geochemically and alteration-wise. And so that's a summary. No technique comes with a copper gold guarantee, but not too big, not too small, but just right in terms of the Bouget residual. You can find magnetic burgers easier, but if you want the fries with that, then gravity's the order of the day. And there's a disclaimer. Thank you. Sorry, I'm a bit over time.